All right, good evening, everyone. Very happy to see everyone here tonight. Thank you for attending to listen to all the information that I have to share. My name is Brendan Aspelin, the superintendent here in St. Johns County Schools, and I want to talk tonight about your taxpayer dollars and how we spend those in the school system. I do want to thank our IT folks and our communications folks for putting this together tonight. We really appreciate that, and I want to thank all the employees and others who are here in the board chamber tonight for coming and listening as well, so thank you very much. This will be recorded, and we will place this on the web page so anyone can look at it in the future. You might ask, well, how do I ask a question? Well, you can do that through the chat, and I would recommend that if you have a question, go ahead and put it in any time during the presentation, and then at the end, we'll come back and look at those questions and answer as many as we can. If there's anything that we can't answer, we'll certainly get that answer and place that on the webpage as well. So again, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll get some good information tonight. The information tonight that I'm going to share is basically data and facts. Data and facts, and I'm not here to share my opinion. I'm not here to sway you in a certain direction. I think if you have the facts as a taxpayer and a parent or a family member or even a resident, that you'll be able to take these facts and create your own thoughts and opinions about what you hear tonight. So with that, I want to say St. Johns County School District is absolutely amazing, like everyone knows. We are still moving forward very positively, excelling. Our students are very successful. And the first slide that I always like to show is just how our students are doing. So when you take a look at this, you'll see that this is the state assessment ranking. And in the state of Florida, you know, we have our assessments that our students take. And in reading, for instance, you'll see that the state assessment is given in 3rd grade through 10th grade in reading, 3rd grade through 10th grade. There are 67 districts in the state of Florida, and this shows the ranking according to the Department of Education. So you can see there that grades 3, 4, and 5, we rank first in Florida among all 67 districts in reading. And in 6th and 7th grade, it's 3rd and 2nd ranking, and then 8th, 9th, and 10th, we're ranked first again in reading, which is absolutely amazing. The fact that we have that many grades in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd rankings within the state of Florida, 67 school districts. In math, the state gives our state assessment tests in 3rd grade through 8th grade, and you can see how we rank there. We rank 2nd, 1st, 3rd, 4th, 17th, grade 7, and we continue to work on that, just like we continue to work on everything. We can always improve. In grade 8, we rank first. In science, the state gives the assessment only in 5th grade and 8th grade, and we rank 2nd and 1st there, as you can see. And then EOC stands for end of course exams. And the end of course exams are given actually in middle school and high school, especially for those courses that receive high school credit. So when you look at civics, for instance, in middle and high school, our civics test, we ranked 1st place in the entire state of Florida, which we are all very proud of for our students. They do a great job. U.S. history of 1st place again, and then 2nd place in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Biology. Our students are knocking it out of the park. They do such a great job. And our teachers and our administrators all do a fantastic job with our students as well. And I do want to thank our parents for this also. Our families, our parents, our community, it's all of us working together collaboratively to help our students be successful. And this is the result of that. And then you can see in the last column there, the school grades. We had no schools that were C's, D's, or F's. All of our schools are A's and B's. So we're so very, very proud of that. All right, so when we look at funding, the state of Florida funds our school systems at right around $9,000 per student. In the entire U.S., it averages around $20,000 per student. And so if you were to look at a state in the Northeast, for instance, maybe Connecticut, let's just say Connecticut, you might be in the $30,000 range per student that they spend on students in their school system. And then it ranks all the way down in the U.S. to where we receive an average of $9,000 here in Florida for all of our students. So right now we have 51,000 students, and we're receiving around $9,148 per student if they're general education. And then our students with disabilities will receive a little bit more. We might receive $15,000 a student, $25,000 a student, or even $30,000 to $35,000 a student, depending on the situation with students with disabilities. But most of our students are in the $9,000 range. Okay, so I'm going to get behind the computer on this one. There's a lot of numbers up here, and it's very, very small, and I want to make sure that I can point to certain areas and help you understand what this is. So give me 1 second here. Okay, am I looking at either one, correct? Yes. So what is this chart? This chart comes from the appraiser's office here in St. Johns County. And this has to do with your tax bill. And I've had lots of questions from people about why did my tax bill increase so much, especially for education. So I wanted everyone to take a look at this. These are all the numbers, the charts that came directly from the home appraiser's office. So this top line, and I just want everybody to understand, this top line represents the years. So 2010, 2011, all the way over to 2024, 25, 25, 26. The next row is the RLE. The RLE is the required local effort. And that is the rate that the state has placed on our education system to figure out how much dollars, how much money comes out of your pocket for schools. And so how does that work? Well, this rate is up against your home value, not the Zillow value, but your assessed value of your home. And then it's multiplied by 0.005571, and that's how you come up with the amount that will actually be dollars that come out of your pocket. And so as you work your way down, or across, 5.5 was back in 2010. And again, this is the state. The state regulates this. Your school board does not handle these rates, increase them or lower them, decrease them. The state does. So 5.7 in 2011, 5.4, 5.2, it goes down, down. So over the years, the rate has decreased all the way down to 3.017. So why is that? Well, the state of Florida, the legislature, they want to make sure that the dollars coming out of your pocket stay flat as possible, since the home value that you have will increase. So when your home value increases, but the rate decreases, that allows you to stay flat as far as the amount of money coming out of your pocket. So, so with that said, as this has gone down, and now we're at 3.017, this hasn't necessarily stayed up with inflation. And you know, in our school system, just like you at home, our expenses are increased each year because of inflation. And so as this rate, the RLE, has gone down and the home values have gone up, the amount of money coming out of this is just slightly increased, but not by much, but not enough to make up for the inflation. So there's a gap. There's a gap. And so when you look down at these numbers here, these other rows, discretionary funds, you can see 0.748. That's been there for a long, long time. Then you look at capital outlay, 1.5. That's been there for a long, long time. That hasn't changed. But what you do see that has changed is over here on the voter-approved operating row, you'll see a 1.0 right there. And that is the $1 million referendum that the community voted on to give to the school system to help us with our supplements for our educators and our employees, and then also some other areas like safety and student welfare. And I want to say we are so thankful. So we are so thankful that the community voted for that $1 million so that we could add that to our millage and try to make up some of the difference, the gap that we've had from inflation, and based on the fact that the RLE has decreased every single year. So, so when you look at the columns going downward, you'll see back in 2010, when you add these rates up, the rate actually came to 8.069 back in 2010. So whatever the value of your home was, assessed value of your home was, the 8.06 rate was what was used to figure out the total school dollars that you would pay on your tax bill. And then as you see, it went down every year because the RLE up above went down every year. So last year we were at 5.2 was the rate on home assessed value. Since the community voted on 1 mil, that's why it raised to 6.2. And so that's why some of you saw or felt like there was a spike in your tax bill. There was a spike of 1 mil that was again voted on by the community, which we are so appreciative of. That's helping us, and I'll show you in a few minutes how it has helped us. The other thing I wanted to show you is that 6.2 back in, right here, 2018, we were all paying 6.2, the rate of 6.2. You just didn't realize that we were paying the same amount that we're paying right now. The difference is now your home value is higher, so it's going to feel like there's more money coming out of your pocket. So I hope that people understand this and I explain this for you pretty well. But again, if you have questions, please let me know because we want to make sure that everyone understands that. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention just about the rate increase or decrease is that, people say, well, what about the county? How's that different from the school system? And we have school taxes on the tax bill, and we have regular county taxes like police, fire, waste, and those kinds of things. And so one thing to remember, too, is that in the county commissioners, there's 5 county commissioners. In the school system, we have 5 excellent school board members as well. In the county, they can vote themselves on an increase or a decrease of the rates on your property, okay? But with the school board, they cannot do that. The only thing the school board can do is say, look, we need some more dollars. We need a 1 mil. We can put it on the ballot for the voters and see what happens. And gratefully, the community, like I said, voted affirmative for that. And so we really appreciate that. But we don't have control over the rates. The state controls that, and then our county commissioners, they kind of control their own rates to bring it up or down depending on what's needed there. But that's how it all works, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And that's why I'm taking time for that. Okay, so what is this chart? This chart actually has to do with revenue and categoricals from the Department of Education. So we have a financial program that in which we as school districts receive dollars for our students, for our district, based on sales tax and property tax that the the legislature sends the dollars to us based on the increased expenses that we have. So when you see $28 million that they sent us back in August, that is the increase that they think we will have during this school year. And it has to do with increase in utilities and expenses and things of that nature because of inflation. And what I want you to see here is we received in St. Johns County $28 million. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. And the state will say, we've given education and districts more money than we ever have. And that's true. That is a true statement. They have. And we appreciate that. It just hasn't kept up with inflation. That's the problem. And then we have that gap that I just showed you, so we have to make that up. How do you do that? We only receive taxes and grants. And so the 1 mil is helping us with that. All right, so with that, this chart shows the categoricals. So what are categoricals? They are items that the state says you must spend your money in these particular areas first. Then whatever you have left is what you use on raises and things like that, okay? So that $28 million, when you look at this list, you start subtracting all these items because this is how much it's going to cost us this year in those items. So the first one there, student growth. We always plan for student growth. And when we looked at our growth this year, 357 students. A lot of times we'll have 1,200 students. This year we had 357 students as far as new growth. So we put it aside around $2 million that come off that $28 million right off the bat. Then charters. We had a new charter that opened up. Treaty Oaks opened up, and 556 students went to Treaty Oaks. So you have to subtract that because we lose that money, that FTE that's per student FTE, that 9,000 I was talking about. That goes to Treaty Oaks because they are the ones servicing those students. That makes sense. So that was $3 million that comes right off the bat. Then family empowerment scholarships, the growth. Now these are the vouchers that we talked about, all right? And the state said, you know, we think that you're gonna have another 1,000 students, parents, who decide to take the vouchers, which is gonna cost you around $10 million. So right off the bat, you have to take $10 million off of that $28 million, all right? And those vouchers go toward private schools and homeschools. So your taxpayer dollar is going to pay tuition at private schools and parents and so forth for homeschool. That's where that $10 million goes. It doesn't stay with us. All right? So that ESE guaranteed allocation, we always have that. That's $2 million. Mental health allocation, safe schools, education enrichment, student transportation, all of those we have to subtract, and those are pretty normal every single year. Now with transportation, one thing I want everyone to know is transportation, we're the most efficient transportation organization in all 67 districts. If you go on the DOE, you'll see we are the most efficient, ranked #1. We spend $34 million on transportation. The state's allocation for that is $17 million. So we always have to pick up the other half of transportation within our operating budget, which we use for raises and school supplies and school instructional materials and everything else. It has to come out of the classroom because there's no other place to take that. And so we would really love for transportation to be fully funded. So then you have academic acceleration, TSAIA. What is that? That is the teacher, what am I trying to, teacher salary increase adjustment. So that is where the state, the legislature is saying, look, $1.7 million has to go directly to your teachers as a pay increase. And that's great. That's wonderful. Now we have 3,500 teachers. So when you divide that out, it comes out to about $400 per teacher, which after tax is about $350, $375. For the whole year, that's their increase, all right? They're also gonna have an increase on their health insurance. So when you put that together, you're almost coming out to a wash. But that's how much the state, 1.7, has given us to give salary increases to our 3,500 teachers. Instructional materials, additional $900,000 or approximately. Teacher assistants, we always give teachers $300 across the state. $300 per teacher goes to the teacher for things that they need in their classroom and that kind of thing. So at the end of this, you see we're at $7.6 million. Great. We have money for salary increases for all of our employees, right? No, that is not true. Now you take the 7.6 and you go to the next chart. These are other expenses that we have to pay. Substitutes, $500,000 extra. We have more teachers, we have more people, we have more everything, right? So we're going to spend more in substitutes. Student transportation, again, excuse me, the increase is $806,000, but again, it doesn't pay for everything, but that's how much we think. Okay, so medical insurance, that has cost us a $2 million increase because insurance increases every year. $2 million increase in insurance. That subtracts off of that $7.6 million. Utilities. Then you have the Florida retirement system. The Florida retirement system sends us a bill for $1.4 million that we have to send to them directly, and that comes out of this. Then we have the fund balance, which is a state statute requirement of 3%. So our fund balance must hold 3% all the time. So any new dollars we get, we have to take 3% of that, put it into the fund balance. So that was another, where am I? That's another, what, $582,000. Contract labor, We have SLPs, sometimes we have to outsource. SLPs, psychologists, in maintenance, sometimes we need more plumbers or electricians than we have because of all the issues that we might be dealing with. And that usually is right around $2 million every year. New school opening, we just opened up Hallows Cove. Whether you had any students in there or not, just to open up a building, it's going to cost 1.9 because you need another principal, you need all the leaders, you need custodians, you need food service. The teachers go with the students pretty much because we're separating and lowering the overcrowding, so they transfer. But just to run the building, you're going to need 1.9 to run that one building, and every year that's about that amount. Grant positions, clearinghouse fingerprinting. This year the state decided to change their fingerprinting company, which is a good thing. It's very much more comprehensive, very good, but it still costs us $300,000 because the state can't pay for that. Opening schools, QQ and RR, as you know, we're opening those in August, so the rest of this year we will hire the principal, which we did, an assistant principal, so they can start interviewing, a secretary, sorry, some custodial staff and so on. That's going to cost $650,000. So now, look where we are. Negative $3.5 million. So in August, as soon as we sat down in August before school starts, because the session ended in July, right? It ended in July to give us our budgets. Now we're automatically at negative 3.5. How are we going to make up for negative 3.5? We don't have money sitting around in buckets. We spend the taxpayer money because that's what we need to do for our students. We don't have money laying around. We have the reserves, but you have to keep a 3% in there by state statute. When can you use that? If you have a hurricane, if you have something like that where you have to pay up front, but then you're getting paid back by FEMA later, but you always have 3%, at least 3% in there. So starting out at 3.6, so how did we move forward from day one? So here's how we did that. We didn't want to touch any schools if we could. Don't touch the teachers, don't touch anything with the students, with the schools, leave them alone, make sure we're spending our money in the schools. So we looked at our district level folks and departments. We froze all non-critical vacant district positions, and we still have frozen all of them. Reduced district out-of-county travel. When we had to go somewhere, we just don't. We just don't go because it's expensive. And then reduced district department budgets by $4 million. So each one of our district departments was able to go in and try to find $4 million worth to cut. And so that's what we did. We looked at everything, everybody, everything, and it was very difficult because we're already pretty much bare bone, but we cut a lot, all right? And all it does is reduce services because you're cutting, reduce services that we have toward the schools, right? And so and then we cut 3 district level positions. We cut the Deputy Superintendent of Operations, the Senior Director of Accountability and Intervention Services, and the Senior Director of Professional Development or Professional Learning. Cut those 3. So with all that, we were able to save $4.5 million. So now when you put that up against the negative 3.5 that we started with, we're now up by 1 million. So being up by 1 million is good because why? Well, we haven't given anybody any raises yet. So all those expenses that I showed you before, I didn't show you any raises except the little 1.7 that came from the state for the teachers, which was $400. So we had to come up with other dollars to give raises. And when we talk about raises, it's not just teachers, not just the 3,500 teachers we have 6,500 employees. So we have non-instructional folks too. And those people are like custodians, bus drivers, maintenance workers, all those people that do so much for our schools. And then we have AMC, which is administrative, managerial, and confidential, secretaries, all those folks. And so you have to put all that in perspective and try to figure out how much or where can you get the money to pay for that. So what did we do? We had to go into capital, which we never normally ever do that because it's non-recurring dollars. Capital is used for maintenance and building and so on and so forth. But what we found is that you were allowed to take some of those dollars for people that are in those jobs, like the maintenance folks and the bus drivers, take some of those dollars to pay some of their salaries. So we moved some money out of capital into operating just to be able to give people raises this year. And so we made all those cuts. We had to do that. And it's all based on the fact that we're not staying up with inflation. We need more money from the state to stay up with inflation. So Our board members, like Bev Slough, who's sitting right in front of me right now, our wonderful board members, that's why they decided, hey, listen, we know something's coming down the line. We need to get this out on a ballot, the referendum, and hopefully people will vote on it. That is what has saved us this year. So we're, again, very thankful that everyone voted for that referendum. So now I want to move I'll move into that in just a second. Something else I wanted to show you here. A lot of times when I'm talking to folks, I hear, oh, well, you know what? You guys just aren't good stewards of your money. That's why I want to show this today, so everybody can see what we spend our money, how we do it, what happens. We are good stewards. Our board members are awesome good stewards of our taxpayer dollars. But you need to know where your taxpayer dollars are going. So besides here, and I'll show you in a minute, a lot of money is going to private schools and homeschools that we could be using in our school system to run our big organization of 50 schools. But what I hear is you're top heavy. You spend too much on administrators. My response to that has been, well, okay, let's take a look. I'm going to go check that out because I want to make sure. I need to know that so we can figure out what we need to do here. And so when I did, you go on the DOE webpage and this is what comes up. And so under St. John's there, the highlighted total school expenditures. If you look at 97%, so 97% of our expenditures are right in our schools. We spend 97% of our dollars in the schools with the students on everything having to do with schools. Then as you move across, you'll see district expenditures, which are administrative type, 2.6%. So we only spend 2.6% of our dollars on administrators and district expenditures, so on and so forth. Everything else, 97% goes into the classroom. So I thought, oh, well, that sounds pretty good. So then when you look at the ranking, we rank number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 as spending the most money in classrooms. So that means there's 61 other school districts that spend more money on their administrative and district costs, not in the classroom. And so I think St. Johns County is doing a great job. We are definitely not top heavy. And so if anybody says that, that is not true. And you can look on the DOE webpage and get this. Remember, like I said earlier, all these numbers I'm getting from other places, the DOE, the appraiser's office. We're not making these numbers up. This is what it is. I'm just trying to explain to you how it all goes together. All right. So back to the Florida Empowerment Scholarships. You need to understand this. These are the vouchers that you hear about. The first bullet up there says 31% of the budget, the state budget, is earmarked for education. So when you look at the giant pie, 31% is for education. Then you have all these other slices for police, fire, medical, health, insurance, whatever, all those things. We in education, all across the state, all 67 districts, 31% of that pie goes to the districts. And then it's split up at $9,148 per student, okay? That's how it works. The problem with our slice right now is the vouchers. Right off the bat, they took $4 billion out of the 31%, which means our little slice of the pie is a lot smaller. So now all 67 districts have to feed off of a smaller pie because $4 billion came out of the 31% that we were given, whatever that total is, all right? And so now you're working with a smaller pie. So what is that? Well, FTE, which is the amount that we receive per student, is right around $9,148, all right? That follows the student. And what does that mean? Well, because we've asked about that. You know, what does that mean? Well, if the student is, whoever is serving the student, that's who gets the money. So if the student goes to private school gets it. If the student goes to homeschool, parent gets the money. If the student goes to public school gets the money. If it goes to charters, charter gets the money, okay? Makes sense. You're serving the child, right? It follows the child. Here's part of our issue. We are spending $9,148 on 5,970 students who are either in private school or homeschool. That is $55 million over the last couple of years since parents have been able to get these dollars to spend in private and homeschool. Cost our district $55 million over the past few years. So our money is going away. So what does that mean? Well, the people who are in private school These 5,900, they haven't necessarily been in our school system. They've been sitting in private school all along because they want to go to private school for whatever reason. I'm not against private schools. It could be a religious reason. It could be whatever the reason. Okay? Private schools, they do what they do, and that's great. But the people who are getting it, these 5,900 people, never have been in our district to be pulled out and the money follow the student. The money is going to them, not coming to us. We still have our 51,000 students because they're not leaving to go there. They've already been there. So we still have our 51,000 students and our big organization expenses. So our revenue has decreased by 55 million, but our expenses has stayed the same or gone up because we still have 51,000 students. I hope that makes sense. All right? So, when we have, let's say we have 500 students who leave, kind of like with Treaty Oaks. When Treaty Oaks opened this year, 500 students left. That's about $4.5 million, maybe $5 million. Okay, and that goes with them, all right? That's $5 million that went with them. That's a lot different than $55 million going away from us, and we never even had those kids. It's not like they left us. They've been sitting in private school. Now the private school parents, and I get it. If I was a private school parent, I'd be like, woohoo, that's great. My tuition is $10,000. Now I'm getting $9,000 from the state. I only need to pay $1,000 in tuition now. Granted, they're all paying taxes like we all are. But now they only have to pay $1,000, for instance, to go to private school where they want to go and everything else. But it's taking money away from our public school system, and we have a large organization and a huge overhead. That 500 students for us is a drop in the bucket, because here's what happens. That 500 students that left, not that we don't want them back, because we do. We want all the students to come. But 500 students, when you look at 50 schools, that's around 10 students per school. With 10 students per school, which is maybe 1 student in this class and 2 in that class and 1 in that class, we're not releasing teachers. We still have 22 kids in those classes. So your teachers, we still have the same number of teachers, still paying for the same number of teachers, still running the same number of buses, because 500 students over a large district like ours is minor. It's minor. So our expenses are the same. We can't delete them. So when the money follows the student, it doesn't mean we can release a teacher and not pay for that teacher. I hope everybody understands that. And so, so that's what's going on. And that's what is kind of a challenge for us. That's a barrier, a challenge for us. Again, I'm not saying anything bad about private schools or home schools. I'm just saying the legislature now has allowed people to receive this money, which will not come to us, it'll go to them, when we're still trying to run this big program, because we can't reduce by $55 million, just fire a bunch of people, because we won't have people in front of kids. There's another law that's the classroom size amendment. Classroom size amendment is a law. And you have to, in the little guys, elementary, you have to have 18 to 1. 1 teacher to 18 students. Middle school, 22 to 1. High school, 25 to 1. I can't just release teachers and increase class sizes to 30, 35, 40, because it's against the law. So if I can't do that, I have to still spend a lot of money on all the people we have as overhead with less revenue, because it's going to these other people. All right? So that's tough. We're between a rock and a hard place on that. Okay? And so we're, by the way, we'll compete with anybody. We have great programs. We have awesome programs. We want everybody to stay with us. That third bullet there, that $9,148, what does that go toward? That goes to all these things. Overhead isn't just paying for a teacher. Overhead's paying salaries, but it's also paying for maintenance, transportation, textbooks, school supplies, cleaning, utilities. It pays for all those things. So when one student leaves and takes their entire $9,148, they're taking money that would have also gone to utilities and transportation and textbooks and all those things, not just salaries. So if anything, the vouchers should maybe be cut in half. Keep half with the school district and take half with the homeschool who doesn't have these expenses, right? And so that's just a thought, But right now, the entire amount is being taken from us, basically. So that's where revenue versus expenses comes into play. All right, so When we look at our private school students and our homeschool students, the other thing we need to understand is the private school gets the dollars, the homeschool parent gets the dollars. We don't get the dollars. But homeschool students and parents, which I understand, they come to us, to our schools, to our teachers. Can you evaluate my student? Why? Because our people are certified teachers. In private school and homeschool, you might not be certified. Who knows? But we are certified teachers, so they come to us so that we can look at their work and sign off at what grade level they are so they can either go to the next grade level or not while they're in homeschool or private school. Basically, it comes to homeschool is where we deal with most of that. In-person end-of-the-year testing. You know, at the end of the year, we have AP test, IB test, ACE testing, all those testing, SAT, ACT, all those things. Well, if you're a homeschool student, where do you take that? You have to come to a school to take it because that's where it's given. The SAT people come in and they utilize our auditoriums and such. So they come and they use our facilities and we have to process that and we don't receive money for that. And the other one where we evaluate work, we don't receive any money for that. The parent keeps the 9148. We receive no money, but we're helping them with that. Provide exceptional student education support. We have to, when people call us or ask us, our ESE teachers and our ESE department looks carefully at that to say, yeah, in some cases we need to help you. If you're homeschooling your ESE and they come to us, we look at that and we say, gosh, we might have to help with that. And we do, for free, for free. Help with individual education plans. Those take a long time and you have to understand the student. So when a student is homeschooled, we have to get to know the student a little bit and find out what they're doing so we can help with IEPs if we need to help with IEPs. But our teachers do it, and they do it for free. And then the ESE matrix. When a person applies for a voucher in your homeschool or private school, either way, the company that handles vouchers, which is called Step Up, it's a separate third-party company away from, but anyway, all the money flows through there. When that happens, a parent with a student of disabilities, you can be we call it a 252 student, a 253 student, or a 254 student. A 252 student, since they're students with disabilities, gets a little bit more than that $9,000. I think it's around 15. Then a student who's 253 gets around 20 or so, 25, and a student 254 is around the $30,000 range, okay? So the state just, when you have a student with disability and you're a homeschool student and you apply for a voucher, or a private school student, you apply for a voucher, they automatically put you on the 252, which is the lowest, right? So it might be $15,000 per student. Well, then the parents come to us. They say, can you reevaluate this for us? Because we think our student is a 253 or a 254. And so we spend hours upon hours upon hours, our ESE folks do this, to make sure students, because we're trying to do the right thing, make sure students are evaluated correctly and have the right number. Well, if a student is a 255, now that parent just went from $10,000, or yeah, $15,000 to $30,000, right? So they take that money as homeschool and or private school so that they're able to help their student. But we do that for them for free. We spend tons of money. That takes time away from the kids we have sitting in our public classrooms. And our teachers do that because it's the right thing to do for kids. But we don't have the money. We just want the funding to support what we do. That's all we want. That's all we want. And then we'll compete with everybody. But you can't shortcut us and expect us to compete with people who are asking us to do things and they're the ones getting all the money. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. All right, so referendum. Again, thank you for the referendum. What does that mean? 1 mil in our county is $61 million because our assessed values in St. Johns County, $63 billion. $63 billion in assessed value in our district. So we receive 61 million of that. The county receives 1.2 because they have to process all of this. All right, so we didn't get the whole 63 million, we get 62, or 61. So what does that mean to you as a taxpayer? Well, if your house is assessed at $250,000, When you do the math, it comes out to $250 increase in your tax bill for the whole year. If your house is assessed at $1 million, then that's a $1,000 increase on your tax bill for schools. That's how that works, okay? If you have an $8 million house, it's $8,000 increase on your tax bill. So that's where you kind of see the spike on your tax bill, but that's what it is, and that's how you calculate it. So what do we do with it? Well, in the referendum, even when we were voting, we made sure that the voter knew how we were going to use it, because we wanted to be transparent up front, and that's where we are. So we all said all along, 85% of what we receive from this is going to go to supplement salaries. And so 85% of the $61 million is around $52 million. That average is about $6,000 per employee because we have 6,500 employees. So when you divide it, that's what you get. The 15%, which is $9 million, goes towards safety, student welfare, preservation, enhancement of curriculum, and so on and so forth. So everybody knew that as well. That's $9 million. So when we gave, before we get to this one, when we were able to supplement all of our employees, for instance, our teachers, when they negotiated that went from everywhere from a teacher who might be 0 to 5 years teaching was right around $4,500 increase on their salary, to people who are like 20 or 21 years plus, up to like $8,000, $8,500 per teacher, all right, for the year. So that's a great supplement. Teachers don't see an increase of $5,000 or $6,000 in 1 year. They don't. They never do. It might be $1,000, maybe $2,000 in a year, but to see that is great. So, with that said, and non-instruct, don't want to leave them out, they decided in their union to divide it evenly. So all of their folks, probably around 2,500, they decided to distribute it evenly, which came to $6,500 per person. So your bus drivers, your maintenance folks, all those people, and our secretaries and our school administrators and some of our administrators here in our school district, we did not pay any supplement to cabinet members, which would be our upper level leaders in our school district, and board members and me. So we did not take any. We're paying the tax, but we're not taking any money back. So that's how we distributed that. Then when you look at the 15%, the 15% was for safety, student welfare, and so forth. So safety. Another law. You must have a law enforcement person in every single school. That's the law. You got to pay for that. So we work with the Sheriff's Department, which our Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Hardwick, they are amazing. They're fantastic. We have a great relationship with them. They help us so much. 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, any time of day, they are helping us. We are a safe county because of them. They're doing a great job. We pay for 70% of that resource officer or law enforcement officer that's in the schools. That comes to around $6.7 million, just does, right? That's a lot of money, but that's what it is, and it's well worth it with the safety that we get. 6.7 million is what it costs us. For safety, the state only sends us 4 million. So again, we'd be 2.7 million short if we didn't have the referendum. So the referendum really helped us make up the difference. So 2.7 million of that 15%, which is 9 million, 2.7 million of that is going to safety for our sheriff's office. And we have, I think, 2 or 3 deputies from the St. Augustine Police Department. We love them as well. So, then you look at student welfare. Student welfare has to do with nurses. Districts are not funded for nurses. The state sends us $0 for nurses. But we feel it's very important to have nurses in our schools. We have 70 nurses in our school system. All right, we have 50 schools, 1 or 2 in schools, plus we have roamers in case people get sick, because you got to make sure we always have a nurse. 70 positions. So with this $9 million, we were able to pay that supplement to them. And for once this year, we have no openings. We always have 10, 15 openings, maybe 20 openings in our nursing slots because they can make much more money going and working for a doctor. But since they're making this extra money, they are here. They have filled our positions and they're sticking around. So that leads me into the next one. This chart, and there's only a couple more slides, by the way. This chart has to do with resignations and terminations. The blue bar is resignations. And you can see over the years, from 2019 all the way over to 2025, what our resignations kind of look like across our whole district. Well, in 2025, this is the summer. You can see that people really like the fact that the referendum went through and they're getting this extra money because they're staying here. We're retaining them. That was the whole objective of the referendum, and how people, when they voted for it, that was the reason. And it did what we said we thought it would do. We are retaining our people, and I think it's only going to get better than that, only better than that. And if we can keep our people, just like any great team, if you can keep your people and you're moving them along, and you're not having to retrain new people all the time, it's always going to be better for our students, always. They work together, they collaborate, they get to know each other, and things work out really well. So that's a really good sign. Terminations went up a little bit, but we had to do a little bit of that. Okay, so to start the school year, we normally have over 100 vacancies in the classroom. This year we had 12. We only had 12 vacancies. So we were filling our slots, which is awesome. Bus drivers, we still have an issue. We have 300 buses, 250 bus drivers. With 250 bus drivers, that's 250 different routes, which means we have double runs, triple runs, and a lot of you as parents and residents have seen that we've had to do double runs, triple runs, just don't have enough drivers. Drivers have to have a CDL license, and they have to want to drive a bus full of students. One thing that the referendum did do was retain our 250 bus drivers. We normally have a lot of people who leave us at the end of the year. They stayed. We just have to fill the openings that we have, and we're working through that. I think we have 20 in training right now. And as we bring more and more bus drivers on, we'll be able to have more routes and have less double runs, less triple runs, so then it becomes a really good thing. We're working on that. And if anybody out there that's listening to this wants to be a bus driver, please let us know. We will train you and get you that CDL license ourselves, and then you can drive a bus. All right, this is the last thing I want to talk about, Schools of Hope. This is another law that came through right at the end of the session. The budget session, if you remember, I don't know if you paid attention, but it was extended. Couldn't get the budget knocked out. Finally, it got knocked out July 1, I think, June 30th, somewhere in there. When that happened, this law got slapped in there and passed with the budget, okay? What is this? This is Schools of Hope. This has to do with charter schools. And this is where a charter school can request and receive open seats in a public school to utilize for their charter school. So in other words, if one of our schools has like 100 available seats, they can apply to the state and they'll get it. These 100 seats in your school, in your child's school, so a charter school comes in and uses the school with your students in your public school. So it's kind of like roommates, okay? So you have the charter school and the regular school, and they utilize the space. And they utilize it for free. So they're getting the FTE of $9,148, plus charter schools get another $2,500. And they're coming in and using the public school system seats for free. That's what this law says. But it gets even worse. Not only can they come in and use them, then all the overhead, the utilities, food service, cleaning, all those things, we have to pay for that. They do not have to pay a dime. So they collect all the money for their student, but they don't have to pay anything except for their salary for their teachers, perhaps. But all the overhead, we still pay for that, even though we weren't paying for that because we didn't have, you might have some areas of the building that aren't necessarily being used because we're growing and we fill our spots, but sometimes we have some gaps and we'll have some openings, right? We don't get paid for that. So they rent for free. And then we as the landlord pay for everything. And we don't receive the money from the state to pay for it. The charter school receives all that money. You can make your own decision on that. It just doesn't sound right. Now, one thing I will say, the legislature has heard us, and I know they are looking at the language to see if they need to amend the language somehow. So we're hopeful that some of that might get changed, but for now, it has not. It is a law, and that's what it is. And that's where we are. Now, in St. Johns County, we're okay. We only received one letter, and it was for our First Coast Technical College. And I think that had a lot to do with because what they see in numbers, they're looking at K-12. First Coast Technical College are our adult students. So they're utilizing those seats. But when the charter school looks at the paperwork, it looks like they're not because there's no K-12 kids in there, right? So it looks like space available. So we sent a letter back and explained all that, and I think we're going to be okay with that. Some districts have received 20, 30 letters for charter schools to move in. So we're in good shape there. The big challenge for us right now is the voucher piece, because that is taking revenue away from us, and we never even saw the child, revenue away from us, and we still have to pay the overhead for all of our 51,000 students. We had 1,400 new students come into our school district this year. So actually we have grown in that sense. But the voucher money, the money goes away from us because people apply, and it might continue. As more people in private schools and home schools realize they can get this money, they're going to keep applying for it. So it could get worse for us as far as revenue going away, even though we have more kids. And we have to pay for everything. So that's an issue. That's a big issue for us. So we are really marketing a lot. We want everybody to understand all the great things that are going on in St. Johns County schools so that you keep your kids in our schools. You want to come here. It's fantastic. We have 29 career academies in our system at our high schools. 60% of our students in high schools are in these careers. They're amazing. And I think people don't know all the things that are going on. So we're trying to put out some videos and things like that so people know what's going on in our school system. But we would love for, if you're making that decision, we'd love for you to call us so you can visit, take tours, so you know what we do, instead of just going to another school that might be bright and shiny because it's brand new or something. So I wanted everyone just to understand your tax bill, but also understand where your money is going. It's not necessarily all going to public schools. A lot of it, $55 million of it, is going toward private and homeschool. So be aware of that as a taxpayer. So if you want to talk to your legislators or anything, I put this up. Can you click that one for me? Thank you. This screen gives the information about our legislators who are here, our local delegation. And you'll see Tom Leek, Senator Tom Leek, Representative Kim Kindle, Representative Sam Greco, and Representative Judson Sapp. These are all wonderful people. They are truly wonderful, and they're all trying to do the right thing. But we need to express to them, make sure they understand what the bill says or what the law says, not only what it says, but how it affects our public school system. And it affects our public school students and public school parents and our employees and just the whole public school program. How's it being affected? And is it really fair for taxpayer dollars that you didn't get to vote on? That was the legislature made that decision to send that money to vouchers. Whereas every time we do something, everybody has to vote on it or it doesn't happen. The legislature decided to take that money and send $4 billion out of our 31% piece of the pie because they made that decision. 4 private schools, 4 charter schools, 4 homeschools. And so we just need to make sure that they understand that. So if there are amendments and there are things that they need to know what it is and hopefully agree with us. But that's who you talk to. That's who you talk to. Now, they go into session yesterday. They started session yesterday up in Tallahassee. They'll be there how long, Bev? 6 weeks? 60 days. 60 days. They'll be in session. But after they finish session, when they're here in May, June, July, August, September, that's when you also, if you can, talk to your legislator. They're here. They're local, and they're able to talk to you before they even go into session. All right? But there's the information there. So with that, Do we have, yes, we do. We have questions. And like I said, if we can't answer it for whatever reason, I will get the answer for you because I want to make sure you get factual data. And I don't want to make anything up. No fake news here.
All right, so right now we have two questions. So the first question's, what's being done or can be done to make sure the state increases the provisions to cover basic needs?
Okay, good question. So this page right here is what needs to happen. So besides all of us educators talking to these folks, parents and families need to talk to these folks. Retired people need to talk to these folks. Residents in general, anybody that pays taxes, talk to them. And I know there's something out there right now where there's going to be something out about reducing or property tax and that kind of thing. Great, okay, whatever, that's good. But in the meantime, whether they decrease it or not decrease it, where's the money going? It's going to private, and it's going to, okay, and they need to know this. And so for them to increase the dollars, the legislature has to help with that. That $28 million that they gave us at the very beginning, if that $28 million could just zero out the categorical expenses so that we can start at zero, that would be fantastic. They need to know that, okay? But we don't need to be starting the school year in the negative because they didn't send us enough money. That's the thing. So this is how they would do it. You have to call those people or email them and so on. Another question.
Okay, so the next question is, do we have any additional Schools of Hope requests outside of FCTC at this time?
We do not. That was the only one we received. We already responded. We haven't gotten anything back. So I think the Schools of Hope, charter schools that are doing that, there's probably 10 big charter schools that are doing that across the state. I think they're looking at other places. And I think a lot of it has to do because we're very high performing and we're a growth. We always have new people coming in, so we fill our seats as we go. So I think both of those things have a lot to do with it. And so that is still on our list. We need to be ready for it in case it happens, but it's not as high of a priority list as the voucher piece because we can't control that one bit. Good questions, good questions. Anything else?
Is there any discussion about getting rid of the Schools of Hope rules or only adjusting the language?
Yeah, so what I've heard so far is if anything would happen, it might be an amendment to the prices or the charges. So in other words, pay for your fair share, right? If you're gonna be somewhere, help us with the overhead, the utilities, those things. And so from what I understand, any amendments to that would be more in that range, not whether they can come in or not. All right, and that's Parker Raymond, Director of Human Resources. Thank you, Parker, appreciate it. All right, any other questions from anyone in the chamber here? All right, I want to thank you all again for being here tonight. I hope it brought clarity to some of what you're thinking about with your tax bill and where the money goes. We all think it's very, very important that we are transparent as a school system. We need to all trust each other and work together as a community in St. Johns County to help our students be successful. And the only way to do that is if you know exactly what's going on. And I hopefully explained that as clearly as I possibly could so you have an idea. And if you need to ask us, you need to email us, anything, please do so. And check out our webpage because a lot of times we'll have little videos on there that you can watch, 2-minute videos, just real quick. So you can watch them and see what's going on in our school system. But again, thank you very much. We appreciate you and the community. Thank you so much once again for voting for the referendum. We couldn't do it without you. If we didn't have that, I'm telling you, a lot of our teachers would have went to other surrounding districts that do have the referendum because they would have gotten the extra $5,000 or $6,000 there. And we don't need our great employees leaving us for more money. We need to stay up and compete. And the referendum has helped us to do that. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.